Good morning. It's June 14th, 2022. Welcome to Triggered. I'm Cory Morgan. It's a dreary and dark one out there as we're in for a rainy few days here in southern Alberta. Everybody's worked up the flood warnings and the rest. I guess, as long as it's manageable, getting that forest fire risk down and getting some rain into the ground for the hay and the farmers probably won't hurt. Let's just hope it doesn't break the banks, but we shall see, I guess. So this being live, this is where I like to remind everybody, hey, make use of that comment scroll. I really appreciate it when you do. Good to see you there, Helen. And chat with each other, send comments, send me questions, ideas for the guests, things like that. Keeps it interactive, makes it worth doing live, keeps this fluid, and I just like seeing them out there. So I know I'm not just talking into the ether and thin air. There's actually people on the other end listening to this, whether they're appreciating it or loathing me. It doesn't matter as long as you're listening to our sponsors. So good to see you all there. Randy, Gregory, Lori, all kinds of folks joining in. Arthur Green, that guy. Now there's a character. All right, so let's look into our daily observances before we get on to the serious stuff, and there's plenty of it. And yeah, Arthur's saying it's time to build an ark. It could be. We'll see what we can save. There's a few creatures I wouldn't, or a few people I wouldn't. But that's a separate story altogether. So it is National Corn on the Cob Day. You don't want to forget this one. This is important. Hey, everybody loves corn on the cob. A little bad if you got gaps in your teeth, I guess. Maybe they should couple it with dental floss day or something like that. But corn on the cob is a fine dish, a summer one. Barbecuing it out here in Alberta might not work out so well today, but come on, it's easy to boil it, splash some butter on that thing, and have at it. So make sure to observe that corn on the cob day. And then, you always have something to brighten your morning during your constitutional the day after. And it is World Bike Naked Day. Yes, you don't want to forget that one. Get out there, jump on the bike, have a ride. Again, it's a little rainy, but that'll really show your dedication if you're out in that cool weather. And, just share what you got. I don't know how they come up with this sort of thing. They come up with these, and I imagine it'll also be, maybe it's lawyers who come up with this sort of thing because they know they can make a fair amount of money trying to defend the people who got arrested for cycling around naked. And of course, like so many things in life, not everybody should really be wandering around naked out there, not to knock them. I mean, hey, rest assured, you don't want to see me without clothing on. It's not a pretty sight. The years have done their thing to me. Either way, if that's your thing, today is the day to strip down, get on your bike, and pedal around a little and show your neighbors what you're all about. Okay, let's see. So a couple of guests today. This can be interesting, a little different, outside of the political a bit. And her name is Aurora Townsend, and she's started a software or an app business on, it's in the metaverse. It's called Planet Theta, and it's virtual dating, like in a virtual coffee shop. It's those things like we see on TV, that virtual world, people moving in and living in there, socializing with each other, interacting. And she's responded to some things because I guess women on there even tend to deal with a bit of harassment and issues, unfortunately, almost too much like real life. But it's a weird development. I think I'm of an age where I'm going to miss that boat of virtual living online, but it's obviously a big and growing thing out there. So it'll be an interesting conversation with her, see how that's coming along and what's going on with that. Then I'm going to speak to Ryder Lee. He's the CEO of the Saskatchewan Cattlemen's Association. And of course, they are not happy with the proposed labeling on ground beef products coming out of Health Canada. And the usual targeting of Western industries and just, how does it feel when you have an industry, a business, something you're making a living with, and you have a government agency basically wanting to tell the whole world that your product's unhealthy and wrongly tell them at that, and to make sure that you can't sell it without having that front and center on the labeling in front of them. So that'll be, I suspect I have an idea of how Mr. Lee is going to feel about that, but we'll have him on for a conversation to be sure. All right. Something that broke in on the news today, the rules for the UCP leadership race have finally come out. I shouldn't say finally, they weren't terribly delayed. They got it going in a reasonable speed, but unfortunately, it's not good. The UCP is now shed the last remnants of being a grassroots-based party with the release of these leadership rules. Now, if a person wants to throw their hat into the ring and run for the UCP leadership, they're going to have to come up with no less than $175,000 in order to do so. $100,000 of that fee plus a $25,000 deposit has to be paid by July 29th, a month and change. And the remaining $50,000 has to be paid 2 weeks later. That sort of fee for participation in what's supposed to be a democratic exercise is a slap in the face for people who value bottom-up grassroots politics. And there's good reasons for deposits and adding a cost for entry in leadership races. I'm not denying that. Leadership races are serious business, particularly when the new leader will become the premier of the province. A bar has to be set to ensure the contender is making a serious bid for the position and has the ability to reasonably contest it. It's difficult to run a race if there's over a dozen contestants in there, so you want to kind of narrow the field. That said, too damn bad. Who said it's supposed to be easy? If we end up with 12 in there, so what? Let's have at it. May the best candidate win. The bar has never been set for a provincial race like this as ridiculously high as $175,000. In the 2017 race, contestants had to pay 2 installments of $37,500, and they had months to do it. There was also a $20,000 deposit. That totaled $80,000 less than this upcoming race, and with a much longer timeline for organization and getting ready to do it. In 2017, despite the much lower bar for entry as well, only 4 candidates entered that race. It's safe to say the bar was high enough to be effective. It may, in fact, even have been too high at that time. No signatures were required from members in 2017 either, by the way. In the 2022 race, you need 1,000 signatures from members, and it's going to be required from a number of regions. Now, I'm okay with setting a high bar for petition signatures. A candidate can meet that requirement with hard work and good organization, even if they don't have a large campaign war chest. It also stops somebody who may have more money than they know what they do with, and they're just going to toss a whimsical application in for the job. There's a minimum bar of work that's going to be required. A deposit for compliance is good policy as well. I've served on leadership committees, and I know all too well what kind of stunts some campaigns can try and pull off. Having a deposit on file helps encourage good behavior on the part of the campaigns, and it gives the party a means to quietly discipline campaigns if it's required, rather than turning it into a public debacle. If a candidate is trustworthy and has good connections, they could perhaps find sponsors confident enough to front the fee, at least for the deposit, with the knowledge they'll get it back later. Now, Albertans rejected the Progressive Conservative Party because it had become too elitist and disconnected from ground-level citizens. The Wild Rose Party grew and flourished as people embraced the grassroots principles of the movement, reminiscent of the Reform Party of the 1990s. We like the idea that as members we count, and anybody can reasonably contest any position within the party, even if they aren't part of a well-heeled establishment. Much of the decline of the UCP in support in this last couple of years has been due to the top-down management style of Jason Kenney since he became premier. People felt the party had returned to the PC style of closed-door elitism, and they were right. To quote Rick Bell, Toryland had returned. In setting such a ridiculously high bar for entry into the leadership race, the UCP is demonstrating that they still don't have a clue why their support both in the polls and in grassroots financial contributions has plummeted. If they do have a clue, they're demonstrating they don't care, and I'm not sure which is worse. This does not bode well for a party reliant on strong rural support for donations and volunteers. And of course, there's urban people who value grassroots participation as well. Elitism is not going to draw back the members who had turned away because of the party's return to the old progressive conservative ways. The UCP has an opportunity to rebrand itself and rejuvenate. They could demonstrate to former supporters, and there's a lot of former ones now, that they've learned their lesson in this last 4 years, and they're going to return to the grassroots principles they sold to voters when the party was formed. Instead, the UCP is appearing tone-deaf and elitist. One can hope the new leader, and I'm not going to blame the leader candidates for this, or whoever it might be, can change this perception. For now, though, Rachel Notley's rubbing her hands together in anticipation of another term as premier, while the UCP appears as determined as ever to alienate its own support base. I'd really hoped for better. All right, well, that rant out of the way. Let's check into the newsroom with our news editor, Dave Naylor, and see what else is top of the news today. Hey, Dave, how's it going?
Good, Cory. Did you miss me yesterday?
Terribly, terribly.
I had to go to Edmonton to attend my daughter's graduation at the University of Alberta. She got her master's degree. She's now a qualified physiotherapist working away at the Foothills Hospital. So a great day for us. And I understand it's a day of celebration for Jane.
It is, yes. Jane's another year older right now. You know, she's turning 40 or something like that.
I thought it was 29. You told me.
Something like that. Yes, I'm not sure. I have learned through a course of a number of failed relationships or getting myself in trouble that I'll just forget what her age is, and we'll celebrate the birthday all the same.
There you go. So knowing you, I take it you're leaving work early to go try and find a present?
If I can manage to sneak out, yeah, the usual 7-Eleven shopping center.
Yeah, well, you've got the bees arriving tonight, right?
I do. We've got our new bees coming in. I've been waiting for months, and I got to try and put those things into a new hive in the rain. It's going to be interesting. But so I'll probably have some great welts and stings to show off tomorrow.
Okay, is there going to be a ambulance on standby in Pritis for anaphylactic shock?
No, I don't respond that badly to them. I'll just whine and run around and be a wimp.
Good for you. Yeah, busy day in the news already today. At this very moment, the Liberals are holding a press conference talking about what they're going to be doing with vaccine mandates. Looks like they're dropping them all over the place as Trudeau flew back with COVID. So it looks like people are going to be able to travel without having to be vaccinated. So good news for thousands and thousands of Canadians. Not so much good news for a Flames fan. The legendary trainer, Bearcat Murray, passed away today at the age of 89. He was a Flames trainer for decades and a stalwart in the community, and he's certainly going to be missed. Speaking of the UCP leadership, former Children's Minister Rebecca Schultz is announcing at 1:30 this afternoon her campaign is on. Rebecca Emanuel talked to her prior, and we've got a story up there on that. And yeah, holy cow, Cory, is it ever wet out there? We've got Eva Sudwick with flooding update for not only Calgary, but southern Alberta, and even the southern BC is getting hammered with snow. Believe it or not, I saw a photo out of Elkford yesterday, and it looked like a good foot of snow. The Liberals have brought in invoked closure on the new bill to C11 to restrict the internet. Elizabeth May, who's actually not crazy on this one, says it's that she's seen. She says even Stephen Harper wouldn't do something as censorship as that. And we've got a follow on that Ontario school who sent a permission slip home for kids to sign if they wanted to get a flag on Flag Day. And the school has responded by saying, hey, you know what? Some people may be, it may harm them to receive a Canadian flag if they've been wronged in the past. So that and some other stories up there, Cory, and our Amanda Brown's got a story on Buzz Lightyear. The new Disney Pixar flick coming out shortly has been banned in 14 countries, and her story will tell you why. And we've got another story on the elephant in the New York Zoo. His name is Happy, but today he is sad because a judge has ruled he is not a person and has to stay in captivity. So how that ever gets to court is beyond me, but we'll have the stories up soon, Cory.
Well, it's good to know our American cousins with their court challenges are as crazy as we Canadians are with ours. So there's some comfort to be taken in that.
You bet.
All right. Well, thanks for the update, Dave, and we'll talk to you after the show.
Thanks, Cory.
So that is our news editor, Dave Naylor, with his newly graduated daughter. I can't think of a better reason to take a day off work than to celebrate something like that. It's not a trivial thing to go out and do. So congratulations are in order there. And just that reminder to everybody, the reason we have so many reporters across the country, the reason we're bringing out these stories on such a timely breaking fashion like this and all of this unique content is because of you guys who have been subscribing. So I want to thank everybody who's subscribed so far. It's been fantastic. Our growth has been just awesome this last couple of years. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hey, come on, get on there, guys. We're talking about $99 for a year, $10 a month. It's not much. And you help support independent media. We're not asking you to, donate or make a charitable contribution. We're providing a product and we're asking you guys to pay for it. Just like you used to get a newspaper delivered to your doorstep, this is the way you can support independent media and news to cover those important stories and different issues out there. So check it out, guys, westernstandard.news/membership. I'll have to look into that one. With the Buzz Lightyear is banned in 14 countries. What on earth? I mean, we got a hypersensitive world and a lot of things that get people worked up. I just would have thought of all the movies, Toy Story. I think, because of my kids and the age they were, I saw the original one more times than I like to think of, but it was still a fun, kitschy little movie. I don't think there was anything all that offensive or, problematic with that one. I couldn't see how this sequel would be, but who knows? We'll look into that. As I said, myself, even I'll have to get onto the site and catch up with the news as it comes. So let's see. I'm going to get through my sponsor too before we get on to our guest, and that is Bitcoin Well. That's well, if we're talking digital, it kind of segues well into this changing world. So many things are becoming virtual. They're going online. They're going outside. Well, currencies are no exception. Bitcoin, of course, is the big one everybody's heard of, but a lot of us don't know how the heck do you get into it? How do you get involved in it? How do you buy into it? Is it for you? Well, or is it a trustworthy company getting you involved with it? That's the important thing. Well, Bitcoin Well is a good local company out here, publicly traded, offering free personalized one-on-one consultation. You can sit down with a person and talk about how to set up your Bitcoin wallet, how much you want to put in, how you're going to put it in, how you can pay your utility bills, all sorts of things. They facilitate your entry into the world of digital currencies through Bitcoin, and they're trustworthy. So if you're curious about it, again, maybe it's not for you, but this is the site to go to check out, to find out all things Bitcoin and see if they offer a product that can help you take control of your money. All right, bitcoinwell.com. And yeah, so I'll just go on to one news thing. We're still a few minutes from our guest segment here. As people might know, out here, we are into some heavy duty rains going on, and the flood warnings. We're in a state of emergency in the city of Calgary right now. I think it's been a bit exaggerated. I think they've pulled the trigger early. You listen to most meteorologists, they're saying they don't anticipate floods like we saw in 2013. But when we consider that the entire city and towns and everybody got flooded so badly out here 9 years ago, people can be forgiven for being worried about it. And, I'm very hard on Mayor Gondak a lot, and I will continue to be. But in this case, I can just see politically and also, I guess, in a safety sense, why calling the state of emergency and just being at the ready is important right now. I don't think anything's going to happen. Most of the reports make it sound like we've got our preparations well underway. But, if things go out of control, the river crests the banks, we flood the downtown again, if we suddenly have thousands of houses flooded again like we did 9 years ago, everybody's going to be screaming, why didn't you do something about it in advance? Why didn't you prepare for this? Why weren't you ready? So I'm not going to complain when I see the city making preparations and giving warnings, even if it seems like perhaps they're going a little too far with it and overreacting. It's better in this sort of case to overreact, do some of these things, and catch the crap for it later than to not take it seriously and suddenly find ourselves in a catastrophe like we did 10 years ago, 9 years ago out here. So we'll see what happens. Hopefully the rain stays decent. One of the things I'd heard is because, most of what caught us the last time was the hot weather hitting the mountains. So the snowpack melted so quickly, coupled with that rain, that it just overwhelmed, the runoff, the flow, and it nailed us. What's happening this time, though, is it's quite cool out in the mountains. So most of what's coming down out there is still snow. And that means it's probably not going to come rushing down as heavily as it did, again, back in 2013 when we got hit so hard and flooded so terribly that time. So, just take care out there, though. If you live in High River, you live in those areas in Bowness and Calgary, of course, check your sump pumps. Make sure your drain pipes are pointed away from the house. Jean came in all soaked yesterday doing it at our place. I think it was one of those things she told me 10 times to do, and I never got around to. So get that water away from your foundation, and we'll get through this. And on the bright side, like I said, it brings down that forest fire hazard. Okay, let's bring in my guest. This is something totally foreign to me, which is why I'm looking forward to it. I like learning here, and this is something I'm just not familiar with, but it's definitely a growing field and area, and that's just virtual reality living. So this is Aurora Townsend, and she has put together, what is that again? Theta, Project Theta? I didn't get that right. So let's bring Aurora in so she can, Planet Theta, there we go. I did say I got to keep up with my own notes. So thank you very much for joining me today. I've been looking forward to this. It's quite interesting.
Thank you for having me. I'm always excited for another opportunity to talk about Planet Theta. It's kind of been my baby project since COVID has started. So I'm really excited for this opportunity. Thank you.
Yeah, so this is an aspect of a virtual reality world. And it's, I guess, very focused on the dating thing, right? Like you can hold virtual dates. You have I saw things such as a virtual coffee shop. You would presumably hook up, meet somebody there and socialize within this virtual setting.
Yeah, so in Planet Theta, there's so many ways that you can meet people and date people. You can do it the more old-fashioned way where you can go to like one of our bars or dance clubs and, you can chat people and, see if you have chemistry that way. We have a thing called microdating, which allows you to have 3 one-on-one, like 90-second sort of like speed dates with people. And you can match people that way if you're not comfortable with just walking up to people in a bar. But not only that, you get to actually go on dates with people. So it's like you can have the experiences of going to the theater or playing mini golf. So if you're long distance, it's a perfect opportunity for you to keep building connections with one another.
I would hope and imagine, though, I mean, is the intent, well, I guess some people will be content just to always have a virtual relationship, I guess, but maybe eventually moving on to meeting in person. Like, I just worry that we're creating a lot of introverts sometimes with some of these new ways of meeting.
I completely agree, actually. I don't think it's going to turn solely into VR relationships only. I mean, think about dating apps. The majority of people meet through dating apps. And that's cool. They continue to have relationships, people get married, but they still have that blend of digital and the physical world. And that's where I think Planet Theta will be. It'll kind of be not necessarily replacing dating apps, but it'll allow a new avenue for people to date.
Yeah, and I mean, I met my wife quite some years ago, and we met actually online through a dating app way back, one of the ones that would be considered primitive now. But people at the time were even saying, "Oh my God, you can't meet people on there and it can't be serious." Well, no, lots of people do now, and it's commonplace. You know, how much did you learn in the old days? People as gray as me, when you had to meet somebody in a loud bar when you're half drunk and try and determine if it's an appropriate relationship, a lot of fails. But something that was interesting, I guess, some of the aspects of reality and a bad aspect of reality that creeps in is there's been issues that you're addressing with harassment and problematic people, even in the virtual environment. So you can't necessarily escape the creeps even when you go virtually sometimes.
Well, for that reason, we have been really focusing on security and supportment of minorities and women specifically because of all the harassment that we've come to accept as part of our dating culture. And we're trying to provide tools to women and just everyone in general so that they have a feeling of like being safe and protected, whether that's being able to mute someone, being able to block someone in a public setting so their avatar cannot interact with you ever again, to not being able to message your partner until you guys like actually both match, like consent to it. So that way it avoids random messaging to people, because I cannot tell you how many times random men message me and harass me, and it's frankly annoying. So we want to prevent that.
Yeah, and I can see the levels of I guess it's a way a person can ease in carefully and feel safer if you're starting a relationship. I mean, through that aspect of things. Something else is you allow a lot more diversity in relationships. It's open to LGBTQ community members, people such as that.
Yeah, actually, fun fact, the majority of VR users are in the LGBTQA space. We allow people a safe avenue to express their true feelings for one another without, being afraid of whatever cultural traditions that are being put upon them. It's a space for everyone to experience love. And I truly believe everyone deserves a chance to love and to be loved. And we don't have that across the whole world. And in Planet Theta, you can do that. And one of the great things about that is too, it's for adults only. We are very strict on 18 plus. If there's any ounce of a kid, kicked off immediately till we manually review the account.
Yeah. So, and I mean, that's really good. I mean, there are people in different situations, as you said, whether it's culturally, or they might be in a rural area where there's just not many opportunities to get out. In a city, a person could go out to different types of establishments where there's more people in those communities, so that they could get involved without having to travel. And especially if they're exploring something new and they're younger, it's a safe environment to try and do such.
Exactly.
So when you were talking about then establishing whether somebody is an adult, how can you do that? Like, I imagine you've got to protect the elements of privacy at the same time as trying to find a way to confirm that these are appropriate people on there.
Well, in your account setup, we ask for, similar to Tinder, we have a, photo verification to make sure you are who you say you are. We have other types of photo identification for like AIs to determine your age. We also have come up with different ideas of being able to like scan the back of your ID, similar to like bars and anywhere where you need to be 21 plus, at least here in the US, we do that. And a lot of apps are kind of turning to that, and we are thinking about implementing that to make sure that you're over 18, because we don't want to put any children at risk here, and we also want adults to feel safe to talk to random strangers.
Yeah. So is this like an independent app, or is this integrated with another platform? Like how does somebody get, I guess, into this virtual universe?
Well, we are on the headsets, VR headsets. You can see here my buddy over there. He's wearing one, for example. You can get on there, and that's how you get into the Planet Data, into the VR world. However, we do have an accompanying phone app where you can upload pictures, add to your account, message with the people you are in relationships with, so you don't always have to be in VR. And if you're not fully comfortable yet with releasing your personal information, you can talk to them through there. You can't really access the app through the mobile app. You have to have the headset on. We will be coming to like PC VR later this year, but at first we'll be releasing on the standalone headset itself.
Okay, so a person needs some degree of hardware as well then to properly take part in this virtual world as well. You're running the mill laptop, you won't quite be able to do it.
Well, I mean, yes and no. Like, it's not necessarily out of reach for the majority of people, because compare the Oculus Quest 2, for example. A Quest 2 typically runs about $299 US. Your phone costs about $1,500, $1,200. Gaming consoles cost about $900 these days. If you think about it, it's really affordable to access. It's cheaper than your laptop, and headsets are aiming to replace your laptop, your phone within the next 5 to 10 years. So it's kind of easier to jump on the bandwagon now. And like, I truly believe too, with the new headsets coming out, it's just going to keep getting cheaper and cheaper and more accessible to people.
Oh, certainly, and technology does, and a few nights in the bar could cost upwards of what that equipment would cost you as well, anyways, with the price of drinks and getting around and Uber and all the rest of it.
Exactly.
So, is this does this tie into more though? I guess then beyond the dating aspect of it, there's whole virtual reality worlds being created out there, and themes and platforms. Is this just sort of independent and focused on dating, or is it going to be kind of part of a broader whole universe out there?
Well, right now our focus is on dating. But one of the main reasons why we chose the name Planet Theta was because we wanted to make a universe, to make a world like that you can access part of your life and your friends that are across the world together in one space. However, our main focus is dating, just because there's not really a platform that supports this. And I still believe that people need a new way to connect in dating compared to dating apps, because frankly, they're awful.
Yeah, so I guess I just want to, it all sounds fascinating. I see a lot of benefits. I just worry about some of the drawbacks. Like if somebody has a negative self-image, things like that, and that's part of what keeps them out. And they've created a new one in a virtual world, but, could it help, unfortunately, entrench some of their negative personal feelings, outside of that world? Like at what point do they take off the mask if they've developed a relationship and let that person see what you really look like? Or is it all based on an avatar?
Well, it's both. That's a great thing about it. So fun fact, our avatar settings right now are really great in the sense of, to build your avatar, you can just upload a selfie to yourself and an AI will build that avatar to look as you do in that picture. So it's kind of you, but at the same time, if you're dating someone, after so many like little dates and meetups in Planet Theta, you do have the option to share your pictures with them. So you can be like, hey, I'm comfortable with you. Here's what I actually look like. And if you like that, great. If not, oh, I wasted a few days getting to know you. That sucked. At least we had some chemistry and some fun times. However, I really don't think that will really happen. I think people are going to connect with one another and kind of feel the chemistry. If they really connect with someone, the element of vainness is a little less prevalent, I suppose.
Okay, so is there ways that it can be separated regionally though? Like if a person's intent, I guess, is to eventually perhaps meet somebody that they'll meet in person and develop a broader relationship, it'll be more problematic if they're on the other side of the continent or the planet. So can they kind of narrow who they're going to be meeting by regional basis?
Oh yeah, we actually give that opportunity to all users, where you can either do your state, sort of like your region, the whole country, or the world, really. We'll be launching worldwide. So obviously there's going to be some language barriers, because we are available in 15 different languages or something like that. Large number for my head to remember. But yeah, so you'll be able to base it off your location if you so choose. If you want to keep your relationship in VR, sometimes it's a little better to do the whole worldwide thing. Or if you just want friends everywhere, you can do that. Or if you actually like plan to meet this person, you can definitely set it for like your town, your few towns, your state. Because, you know, we want them to bring that relationship in the real world too. We're not trying to get people solely focused in VR. We want you to live your life in the best way possible, and we want to provide that tool to people.
Yeah, and that's part of what I kind of keep poking at a little. Is I hope that, you know, it's still it could still be a place people could continue to visit, you know, for a long time. But you want them to develop eventually a broader and larger relationship. Well, it depends on the individual what they want to do. I guess some people might just want to dip in and out of VR rather than pursuing a full relationship. But just to, you know, you get those visions as somebody who never leaves their home and has nothing but a cap on, and I don't know if it's a healthy development for them.
That's true. However, I don't think that's the majority of people that are using VR. I mean, obviously there are some, but like at least with like my generation, there's a lot of people that are super into VR that are so outgoing in normal life, where they're just like event after event, and then they're just like, I'm done. I just want to go play some VR for a while.
Yeah, it can be a break. And I mean, I know for people not familiar with it, but things I liked even way back in the dating apps I used when I met my wife, but you could get a lot of just deal breakers out of the way early too. It depends on what you're looking for. I mean, you know, I wasn't looking for a casual relationship, so let's just get that out of the way off the start. You know, I'm older. I've already had children from a past relationship. I'm not having more, so let's just wipe that out because the people are looking. There's no sense wasting each other's time. And you could, I guess you could filter in a way that you didn't have prior. I mean, you met somebody at the supermarket, you met somebody at the bar, or even at a workplace. You don't necessarily know those details. You could be a lot more candid in a virtual environment.
Oh yeah, it gives people the confidence that they probably didn't have before, which is why I think that people will take that kind of confidence that they gain in VR into their life. At least that's my hope, because it's a way to experience new things, you know, things that are a little uncomfortable that give you confidence as a person. And I think that that's going to explode a bit more as VR kind of takes over mainstream media.
Yeah, or I would hope, I guess. So, I mean, if a person developed a relationship with somebody and the time came to meet, I'm sure it'd still be a nerve-wracking and exciting moment. But if they've already broken through and gotten good, comfortable discourse and done that in the VR world a bit, it'd be easier to get it flowing, you know, once they met in person, presumably, because they've realized that they've got a lot in common or things they like to share.
Yeah, exactly. And if you use our microdating option to meet people, the AI algorithm will kind of filter other people. So you'll fill out a questionnaire. It's short, but if you want to do a longer one, more extensive to make sure that you're matched with people you like, you can do that. And the AI will match you with people that answer similarly, or, you know, however you answered. So then you guys will have a lot of common. So it's much easier to filter, as you were saying.
Yeah, so well, it's really easy or interesting to watch, and I mean, as processing power and communication speeds rise and everything, I imagine this world, this environment is going to continue to grow in the years to come as well, with more activities and regions you could do within it.
Oh yeah, it's going to be nuts. I'm so excited to see where we grow. Like, we already have so many plans too after we launch, just to keep growing worlds, dates, all these different fun opportunities for people to grow and connect. And not only just with your like partner, like your romantic partner, but also with like your group of friends that you may be separated, because I know so many people that had friends, but, you know, got a job or left college or something and moved across the world. And it's like, I miss you. Wish we could hang out. Planet Theta.
Oh, right on. Well, so when is the formal launch going to be, or is it projected to be?
It is projected to be this fall. We should be up and going by November at the latest.
Great. So where can, before I let you go, then where can people find more information about Planet Theta and that whole VR world in general?
Well, you can find us at our website at planet-theta.com. We also have like every social media imaginable at just Planet Theta. Can also reach out to me on my LinkedIn, Aurora Townsend. I try to respond as quickly as possible. And again, you can go to our website to find all of our latest news and sign up for our future beta test that we'll be having before launch. So if you want a sneak peek before everyone gets the cool stuff, you know, sign up on our website.
Well, great. Well, thank you very much for joining us today to explain what that's all about. I hope the launch goes excellently.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It was so nice talking to you.
Great. Perhaps we'll check in again once it's up and running and see how everything's been developing.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great, thanks. That's Aurora Townsend of Planet Theta. I got it right this time. It just only took 15 minutes of chatting. And again, as we're seeing from some of the comments, yeah, a lot of us are a little older, so it seems a little foreign to us, but it's something new and it's different. And as I'd said as well, when people looked at Jane and I like we were crazy, 20 years ago when we were using dating apps to meet online, as it was so new and foreign at that time. And now it's quite commonplace. As I said, there's the worries, though. I mean, eventually, I wouldn't want to see people turning into full-out introverts. But then you get other people who turn into introverts because they're just outright scared to develop relationships outside of the house. And maybe something like this helps them break past that and meet somebody and get out. I mean, there's a lot of people out there looking at different and safe ways to meet. That was one of the scarier things, too, with online apps and meeting people was, eventually your goal is to meet in person, but it's quite a leap to meet somebody in a coffee shop. I mean, that person could be a creep. That person could be dangerous or could be just terribly inappropriate. So these newer means of a virtual world, you can get a much better idea of each other before you get out to that level. It's just fascinating to watch. I mean, I was a hardcore sci-fi reader and all of that, and they wrote stories about this in the 80s on how we're going to get into VR worlds and travel around there, and meet, whether it's dating or whether it's travel simulations or you name it, or even Trekkies would remember the holodeck, of course. It was a large part of every episode with the Next Generation. So we're seeing some of this stuff come into reality, and it's really developing. And I just find it very interesting to watch and see how this goes. And it's a brave new world, guys. We're moving on to some interesting times. All right, let me talk about our next sponsor before I get on to some more news items here. And that is the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. So again, if you guys are into other hobbies, so this is something you can't do on VR. If you like hunting, if you like target shooting, skeet shooting, things like that, well, this is the association you want to be a part of. If you collect firearms, the thing is, that's a pastime, a hobby, and an important one to a lot of people. It's something I was talking with the other gentleman the other day. People actually have their social networks sometimes built around the range or built around hunting organizations. Well, it's under threat. There's a government that's trying to take away your right and ability to use those firearms, to enjoy them. And you have to stand up for yourselves, guys. That's the only way we're going to protect those rights, is to push back and stand up. And the way to do that is to organize, and the association will give you that. They got all sorts of resources, by the way, if you're a firearms owner for general use as well. But either way, it's the Canadian Shooting Sports Association, and they're pushing back against the government mandates that are trying to take away your right and ability to own property and firearms. So get on there, guys. If you value your firearms and your ability to use them, take out a membership with them, because that's the only way they can help you. And, protect your firearm rights, guys. We got to do it. No one's going to do it for you. So let's have a little bit of look through the comment scroll. As I said, well, I think some of it reflects I like to get a diverse audience, and we've got one, but the age, a lot of them are middle-aged folks like me and everything. This VR thing just doesn't sound quite right. And it's not for most of us. I can't see myself plugging in at this point in my age. But for a lot of people, it is something that's coming along, and it's worth chatting about and examining. I used to play a text game. It used to drive my ex-wife nuts because the amount of hours I would spend on it. And it was called Gemstone 3, and it was actually all text and like a fantasy multi-level dungeon type of thing. Thousands of users back in the 90s, way back. This is the ancient internet. We didn't have the type of data movement to be able to have graphics and things like that. But it was interactive. That was the main thing that was cool with that. It was with real people on the other side. And I played actually similar to I do on Twitter, a bit of a jerk, and I like poking things and using poor humor and things such as that. And otherwise just played the game. But some people really did develop relationships on that game through a text-based game with a scroll of text going all the time. And it depended on what they were looking for. That was kind of a virtual world as well, though all the graphics were in your imagination rather than outright graphics as we're seeing now. How far a person wants to get involved and where they want to go is up to the individual. But it was interesting to find out that, yes, there's still harassment issues. Unfortunately, creeps will be creeps and perverts will be perverts no matter where you go, and they always try to find ways. So practicing safe relationships and dating, it just doesn't matter where you go, whether it's in the virtual universe or outside. You've just always got to be on guard. Let's look at something with under the better late than never file. It looks like a lot of the travel mandates, as Dave mentioned on his news check-in, have been removed by the Liberal government. Of course, kicking and screaming and not eagerly. I mean, they only do it when they feel like they're forced to do so. I actually credit Ryan Whitney with Spit and Chickless. This is what moves the government along, unfortunately. Not good, nuanced policy discussions, but public pressure when they embarrass themselves, which they do quite often. So, he's a podcaster, a former hockey player, and mostly a sports personality, but he really live tweeted and exposed just how ridiculous things are getting in Canada's airports and the damage it's causing. Suddenly, the government just couldn't avoid it anymore. And in the mainstream media, of course, they barely touched all those lineups and everything, those chicken shits. That's because they're relying on tax funding, which we don't take and will never take, by the way. That shows that difference, They wouldn't talk about how people are languishing for 8-10 hours at a time, 12 hours at a time in Pearson International until somebody in alternative media exposes it and puts it in their face, because they didn't want to shake the government tree, because suddenly you might not get your subsidies. We're not afraid of those things. So it looks like you'll be able to get on a plane finally domestically without a vaccination, trains, some of those other areas. In Alberta, they're removing also some of the, there's some of the thing too, suspend. That's a word that is troublesome with it, right? Suspend, which gives that feeling like, well, we could bring it back. And they'd like to, because they like control. But either way, let's celebrate the little victories while we got them, guys. Some people will be able to travel again within the country without having to drive. They can fly again if they're people who are non-vaccinated. Again, I'm vaccinated, and I know I'll get all people worked up, and I'll get the emails. I'm going to grow 3 heads or a second pair of nuts or something. But all the same, I got no problem with vaccination. My issue has always been with choice. Let people choose. And the mandates are coercion. They are not choice, and they don't make anybody safer. So seeing those mandates being taken away is a good development. So let's be happy for it and keep pushing them with every possible last mandate there. As I said, in Alberta, they're bringing off the masking crap. So if you ride public transit in Calgary, for example, you won't have to wear a mask, and then you can really, really fully smell the piss on those trains from all of the addicts who are passed out all around on the seats and cars around you, and experience the city transit that Mayor Gondek has built for you all without it being hidden behind a mask like that. So either way, let's see here. This was something that looks really good and very promising. I'm going to talk more about that tomorrow, I think. But I'm going to talk about it now as well. So in a Senate committee, and I've been talking about that, the Senate's really suddenly starting to stand up for itself. It's starting to show itself as that proper institution of pushing back. And the Canadian Minister of BS, and that's Marco Mendicino, who's known for his chronic lying, he's been pushing that bill. He's been pushing Bill S7, and this was a bill that's supposed to allow customs agents to root through your private property and search your personal files, just basically with what they feel is I thought there was a reasonable general concern. That's what the bill said. Well, 9 out of 12 of the members of the Senate committee said no. They said no. They shot it down. They said this isn't happening. And he's either got to now amend or redraft or something. But this bill looks like for the moment, a portion of it is stopped in its tracks. It doesn't mean the bill's gone, but they're not getting away with just ramming stuff through without debate, without amendment, without change, at least not in this particular bill. So it's a really good development. The Senate is actually stopping things. And as Brenda, commenter's saying, about time. Yeah, I know, because the Senate's usually been a waste of time. It's been a patronage pit. It's been a place to stick political buddies for an easy job to try and stay awake while, building up a massive pension. They're actually doing their job right now. And they're standing up to the government on these bills. And, a lot of these senators are from the older Liberal days. And in the older Liberal days, they were still Liberals. I wouldn't call myself a huge Chrétien fan, but they were a world better than the Liberals we have today, the ideological nutcases such as Trudeau and his cabinet of clowns. And this Senate is shutting these things down. Now, for example, C11. Now, that's a federal bill. It's in the House of Commons. It looks like it was, as Dave pointed out, they're invoking closure, so they're ramming it through. They want to get that thing stuffed through Parliament before they recess for the summer, so Trudeau can go surfing. And that bill still has to go through the Senate too. So just because they're shoving it through Parliament, they can't sleep at night confident that this thing is just going to get a quick, easy ride through the Senate. If we actually have a Senate doing its job for the first time in generations, which is awesome, that bill might get thrown back to Parliament. They might say, hey, no, let's take this piece of crap, And that's the bill, like I said, it's just talking about regulating the internet and your information and control. It's a scary bill, C11, C18. Every bill from the Liberals these days is scary. They're always about control, always about stepping on your rights, including free speech, free press, free communication, free expression, association, travel, and search and seizure, which on S7, it's gone down. So, yeah, some of the stuff coming out of the Trudeau government isn't a done deal. He can cut all the deals with the NDP he likes. If he can't get it through the Senate, he's screwed. And I'm just very happy to see that development. We'll see what happens. I mean, there's still a whole lot of political challenges we got to look forward to in this world. But we're seeing some things where maybe they've crossed too many lines and stuff's going to be rolled back. Let's see. Here's an area of, I guess, again, reporting on the obvious. And actually, yeah, there's Brenda again. I just want to mention, she says, write your senators. It does make a difference. I think we forget them. Yes, it's a good point to make. It does matter if they get a lot of communication. It feels futile, but it doesn't. The worst that'll happen is they ignore it. But if they get a whole lot, it's always coming in. They don't read necessarily every one, but their assistant or somebody's going to say, we got 100 emails on this. We got 50 emails on this. We got 1,000 emails on this. It does impact their decisions. I mean, C69, that was the anti-pipeline bill. I think 69. Was it 68? Either way, it was the No More Pipelines bill. That one was suits and boots with Rick Peterson, did a fantastic job pushing back and trying to engage the senators. They still lost, but a lot of senators really put that bill to the question, at least, and got some momentum. With some of these other bills, some other members might stand up. Others, ones like Paula Simons, who's just been, again, a gross disappointment, claims to be an independent senator in Alberta, but she just does whatever the Liberals tell her. She voted against Alberta on that anti-pipeline bill. And I doubt she would stand up for Canadians on some of these other bills either. But some of those older Liberal appointees actually are doing their job, standing up for rights. And you know what? Make sure to communicate them and not just demanding that they stand up to these things. You know what? Thank them now and then. Tell them, hey, I really appreciate you guys actually getting up and doing a good job. It's refreshing, and we'd like to see more of it. I mean, hey, I'm sure that, they're people like everyone else, very well paid people in the Senate, but they would appreciate a thumbs up now and then when they do something right. It's like training a dog or anything else. You got to give some rewards when they do things the right way. Might not want to write the email that way for them. Just say, hey, I appreciate your stance there. Can you carry on now with C18 and C11? Because we got some problems with that too. So yeah, getting back to foreign aid, public cynical about $6 billion in aid. Most Canadians are cynical about foreign aid, says in-house research by the Department of Foreign Affairs. Really? Is this really a shocker with the We, charity and seeing what these foreign, NGOs and charities and companies do with the money, with the tax dollars and foreign aid, of course, that's always been notoriously abused over the years. Often because it's goes to dictators. I mean, we've had foreign aid go out there and it ends up buying tanks. It ends up buying, another wing on a palace for some scumbag in a third world nation. It's not to say we got to end foreign aid, but it means we should be taking a lot of care to make sure it's actually getting to what we want it to get to. I think we're a nation that's, for the time being, doing quite relatively well compared to a lot of the world. We can spare a few bucks to help developing nations that are having a hard time, but let's make sure that money's going where it is. And unfortunately, the United Nations and things like that are rife with corruption, as well as people on the other end. But somehow they've just discovered this at the Department of Foreign Affairs with a study to realize that people don't trust them with this. Wow, there's a shocker. We send $6.6 billion on foreign aid every year. Let's see, they were polled on this as well. 23% of Canadians felt we should cut that. 14% in Quebec, 22% in BC, 24% in Ontario, 32% in Alberta. We're the high ones with that. So as usual, us heartless Albertans. But we are also the ones who pay the most into this country. We don't get it back. But still, here's some interesting, though. I mean, 58% felt that a lot of the international aid ends up in pockets of corrupt politicians and that most international aid doesn't get to the recipients. This shows Canadians too, though. Okay, so you realize it's not going where it is, but still only about 30% of you think we should cut back on it. But I mean, you know what? It's not either or. I think some of those people are saying we still would like to put it out, but damn it, we need some assurances it's going where it's supposed to. And then there's others. Kenny saying it should be totally stopped there. Kenny Benson, until our books are balanced. Yeah, I don't know. There's some areas I don't mind a bit, but again, it has to go where it's bloody well going. We got a long ways to go to get our books balanced, but I mean, that's a chunk that could afford some cuts, I think, for sure. And let's see, they spent $74,000 for that study. So again, I don't like to dismiss any amounts being spent, even if that sounds small by government levels, sure. But it's still our money, and it's spending money on something they probably should have already known. So, how much do we spend on finding out the obvious? So let's see here. Yeah, here's the gagging of debate on the web regulations. Even the Green Party, saying that this was beyond the pale with invoking closure on this. As Dave said, Elizabeth May, not doing something crazy for a change, opposed closure on this. It was 174 to 146. So that's it. We're done talking about Bill C-11. We're going to shove that through here. Of course, she used it in a liberal sort of style to take a shot back at Stephen Harper while she was at it. But all the same, at least, it's showing how odious this bill is when somebody as troubled as Elizabeth May can even recognize it for the dangerous bill that it is, and that it needed more debate before it could pass. Well, it shouldn't pass. It shouldn't. It's talking about changing the Broadcasting Act, and it's going to get the CRTC regulating commercial internet programs as if they're radio and TV shows. So us, come after this show, and we'll follow under their umbrella. And that would extend to, YouTube content, all sorts of things. It's going to mess with the providers, the platforms. A lot of what was found, of course, shocker. Who's it going to benefit the most? The big media outlets. It's protecting the CBC, CTV Global, the tax-funded ones, the ones who take the subsidies, the bailouts, and shoves us to the side. They don't like us. They don't like independent media. So they will do whatever they can to stop us. And that's what they're doing. Conservative MPs are being open. This Blaine Calkins of Red Deer is saying they're censoring the censorship of their own censorship bill. Yes, they won't even allow free speech on a bill that is infringing on free speech. Boy, there's a vision. I see the comment scroll. You get some beauties. Yes, Debbie McKenzie saying, wonder if May is riding her bike naked today. Well, I don't know. That would certainly liven up the hill somewhat. I don't want to take shots because, as I said, it is Ride Your Bike Naked Day. But I could not pretend to be somebody who would put out a pretty sight riding my bike around naked like that either. I would probably knock the property values down in my whole region pretty badly if I did such a thing. So I won't shoot at others that way if they're going to do it either, not till I could present some muscle-bound body, which probably isn't going to happen. But one of those ways of getting muscle-bound in a good shape, I'll use it as a segue because I see our guest in the lobby is eating good, healthy, single-ingredient foods, and beef is definitely one of them. Yet we've got our federal regulators trying to tell people that ground beef is not a healthy thing, and it's sort of outrageous. So we have Ryder Lee from the Saskatchewan Cattlemen's Association, and we'll discuss this a little bit here. Hello, Mr. Lee. Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, I'm glad to.
So, I just sort of framed it before you came in. I imagine you guys can't be very thrilled with this. The Health Canada is proposing labeling ground meat products of beef and pork with a health warning label. I mean, they're treating a perfectly healthy, domestically produced product as if it was cigarettes.
Yeah, it's frustrating to say the least, but that's why groups like ours exist to work on government when they head in directions like this and help them make better informed decisions, we hope.
Yeah, so what do you, I mean, I guess it's speculative on your part, but what would the motivation of such a label be? I mean, philosophically, I don't think the government really should be there telling us and digging so far into what's good or bad for us to eat. We can kind of figure that out on our own. But if you're going to start picking on types of food items, there's a long list of things that are a heck of a lot more unhealthy than beef is. Why are they targeting beef?
Well, and things that will be exempt from this, like, your Halloween candy bars won't have this warning on them, and even though they are high in sugar. So this is kind of an extension of what we already have with, your information label that has, there's so much of these different nutrients and it's such a % of your daily allowances, but it's on the back and you got to go look for it. And so the attempt here is to shove some of that information on sodium, on saturated fat, and on sugar. If they're higher than a certain trigger, then whammo, this warning goes on the front. And really aiming that at, we don't have a calorie deficit here in Canada. We've probably got too much being consumed, and especially in highly processed foods that really are only bringing calories and a few other things. They're not bringing the nutrients that you need in a balanced diet. And we talked about it in COVID, slowing down, cooking more, and ground beef's a big part of that.
Well, it goes into so many meals for us, and it's a cost-effective way to consume beef, and everything's about, I mean, if you listen to any reasonable dietitian, they talk about it's moderation is everything. I mean, yeah, you don't want to eat a pound of regular ground beef every day. You're going to have a problem. But you don't want to eat a bucket of ice cream every day either. It doesn't mean that the product was bad. It's how you utilize it.
It is, and balance is so important. And we think that that protein, along with other things, is what beef is so great at providing. Iron deficiency is a real thing, even here in Canada for certain parts of the population. And iron's available in different ways from different food products. And one of the most available ways is from red meat. So that's something that gets lost in this, whether you've got, babies or mothers in their childbearing able years. This is a real challenge. So anything that gets in the way of people being able to meet those needs, whether it's, like I said, iron, vitamin B12 is also something that we're seeing shortages of, and you can fix it easily with a Taco Tuesday or we call them dad burgers in my house, but cheeseburgers on the grill in this season are huge, simple, and kids will eat it. There's a lot of other things that are harder to get my kids comfortable with, but those two are home runs all the time, and we need to do.
Well, that's it.
Not get in the way of that.
And parents, I mean, they naturally want, of course, their children to be as healthy as possible. So I mean, they can be afraid if they see labeling saying, "Oh my Lord, I've been feeding my kids something dangerous." I mean, we don't want to take options. These proteins, actually, particularly single ingredient ones, non-processed stuff, is with a growing family, plus with the budgetary constraints right now. Ground beef is a fantastic, cost-effective way to get that to the family. And if you got parents suddenly afraid that, oh my Lord, have I been feeding them something bad, it puts more pressure on the family financially. It stresses them, and it's taking a perfectly healthy, safe item out of their grocery list.
Healthy, simple, affordable, what so many parents are looking for when your time's stretched. And if you're chasing after kids, you probably are, along with, work and everything else. So it is big. And, Dr. Sangeeta Sharma out of University of Alberta was looking at this a few years back now, and just looking at, urban at-risk populations. And she found that ground beef was the most affordable way to get the nutrients that are most at shortage in these at-risk populations. So doing anything to get in the way of that is, to me, counter to helping our whole population be healthier in the future.
Yeah, and from what I've been hearing in the reports, that would, if this happens, it's not done yet, so perhaps we can knock some common sense back into them, but Canada would be the only nation on the entire world that labels beef this way, right?
That's my understanding, yeah. And so that's concerning for several reasons, but one of them is trade as well. We export about half of what we produce, and most of the places that we export our beef to, we're competing with others, and especially the locals. And they look for any way to get a leg up on our product as we compete in their marketplace. And having our own domestic warning sign on there, I can't see as anything but helpful to those protectionists trying to say, well, look, even their own government thinks this is not worth treating as good as our much superior product. So it does worry me as a, kind of kicking us in the shin as we try to walk into other markets and compete.
Well, yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up. And it is very competitive. I remember how eager some producers were in other markets when Mad Cow was going around. Just, it was more market-oriented than safety-oriented, and trying to point out how dangerous Canadian beef was. And if they could find another excuse to say, look at that, they don't even trust their own meat, we shouldn't be bringing it in, we should just buy here. And as you said, half of our meat gets exported. So this employs a whole lot of Canadians. I mean, this is a big industry for us. It's important to us.
It is, and it's not just in Saskatchewan, it's across the country. We're proud of what cattle bring to the environment, because they turn a lot of land that you can't grow crops on into food producing land, and that's everywhere across the country. So from PEI to Vancouver Island, there's cattle out there grazing and renewing that land and employing people along the way. It's important in every riding pretty much. So that's an important part of why we're talking to as many people as we can to reach out to their MP, and especially if they live in where a cabinet minister is, to tell them that this is not a good road to be going down. There is some political need there, and like I said, that's why groups like Canadian Cattlemen, Saskatchewan Cattlemen, the National Cattle Feeders are active on this file to make sure they know just what they're doing and what's at risk.
Yeah, well, and people just don't want to, we can't let these initiatives slide under the radar. I mean, it's incremental things that are motivated by, I don't know, perhaps an ideologically driven individual within Health Canada, and maybe if enough members of Parliament raise their heads up and say, hey, wait a minute, this my constituents aren't too thrilled with this, they might re-examine it.
It's exactly how it works. Yeah, there's all kinds of ideas that get thrown forward and don't see the light of day because just like you said, whether it's at the MP level or at the advocacy level group that like we bring forward, that shine a light on maybe that needs to go back to the drawing board or to be done a little different, because being the only beef around the world that has that, and even the only single ingredient product in Canada, just doesn't make sense. So we're hoping that some cooler heads can prevail and we can move on to growing and improving our competitiveness here in Canada.
Yeah, I mean, you still got a very busy time and challenging industry to work within as it goes, without having to battle your own local health regulators while you're at it. So hopefully, you can get the pressure on and get them back off, so you can focus more again on marketing and better production techniques and all the rest of the stuff your associations typically deal with.
Indeed.
So what could people do then? I mean, they can email their MPs, they can support associations. Like, are there resources online that they can go towards to quickly be able to reach out and bring attention to this?
Yeah, there is. And it's something that's, it's been interesting to see how it goes. There is an online campaign going on as well that is Don't Label My Beef. Oh shoot! Now I need to remember if it's .com or now I'm looking up my links to that, and I'm not finding it right off. But I'll get that to you just in a moment.
Yeah, well, that's all right. I did it on my opening monologue the other day, and I entitled it "Get Your Hands Off My Meat." But I imagine you guys are going to be a little more restrained and politically correct with how you're approaching it. But just good, memorable things so people can all jump in and take part and help out and trying to inject some common sense into this issue.
Well, that's right. And there's two things. I mean, we like to provide people that outlet, and it's a way that smooths it out, and they can go to, it's don'tlabelmybeef.ca. And it's a pretty slick way to fire off some feedback to your MP. But a phone call and a personal outreach are probably more impactful. So there's lots of people that do know their MP or do know their MLA, their Minister of Health. That direct outreach makes it real to them. They sure do value feedback from their voters. I'm one voice in Capital City, and they're like, yeah, Ryder, I hear from you, but I haven't been hearing this from my constituents. So maybe when I do, then I'll give you a call back, and it'll be more important to me. So people thinking that no, it's being handled by our associations. It is. But that local grassroots outreach turns up the give a care factor by politicians a lot. So that's really helpful when people do step forward in those forums and do write letters and do make phone calls.
It's great to remind them. We talked a little bit about that actually with the Senate just as prior to your coming on as well. Even senators, they respond to things as well, actually, and they've been more responsive lately. And we got to remind them of that now and then, and let them know that we appreciate their efforts, or when we don't appreciate. But if you don't talk to them, they could live in a bubble. And it's not associations that get them reelected, it's voters. So if you're calling them up, you can have an impact. Absolutely. So that's at don'tlabelmymeat.ca.
Don't label my beef.
Don't label my beef. Oh, geez, mean. Thank you. See, that's why I correctly. Don't label my beef.ca. Don't listen to everything I say, guys. Make sure we listen to these guests. They know what they're talking about. Well, I appreciate that. And then and again, I think I had it the old term way of saying Saskatchewan Cattlemen's Association, but Saskatchewan Cattle Association. Now we get less gender specific. I appreciate you coming on to talk to us about that today, and just, to stand up for such an important industry and give us the means and a direction to point us at, so that we can head this one off at the pass before this misguided initiative gets entrenched.
Well, I appreciate coming on here. I think there's lots of things that people hear a little bit about, and when we can have a conversation in front of a bunch of them and just shine a little more light on it, hopefully, everybody's a little more informed and going forward with some more information.
That's it. And we got these great modern communication means now, so we can reach a lot of people pretty fast. So hopefully this one's far from a done deal, and we can stop that and then get back to doing the business we'd rather focus on. So thank you very much for joining us today on short notice like that too, and talking about this. And I wish you the best on this.
Yeah, you bet, Cory. Thanks for having me, and right back at you. Wish you all the best. Take care.
Thank you. So that was Ryder Lee with the Saskatchewan Cattle Association. And of course, every cattle association, whether provincially or nationally, is not very, happy with this ridiculous initiative to try and label meats. And it's just bizarre. And I understand he didn't go into the political speculation, and fair enough. That's my job. As to the motives, I suspect it's politically motivated on the part of a bureaucrat, somebody within the health, Canadian Health Association, as opposed to particular politicians. A lot of them, of course, have their ideological agendas as well. But when the elected members get worked up, or start getting those phone calls, start getting those emails, and start phoning into the health department and saying, "Hey, what are you doing? This is going to stop," they will back off. It happens, guys. There are victories. So get on there, as we said. Don't label mybeef.ca, and spread that around. Use that social media. Get on there. It makes it easy for you to reach out, because this is just stupid and ridiculous. We've got enough economic challenges going on right now. We don't need to be pressuring consumers, making them afraid of good, healthy products. We don't need prices going up on good, healthy products when people are already having trouble making the bills. And we don't need our cattle producers getting more pressure and challenges. They've got a tough industry to work within already as it stands. So let's not let Health Canada make a tough industry even tougher. So let's see. Okay, I'm going to speak one more time to our sponsor, and then I'll get on to some more news stuff. Cliff was saying, where's the Alberta Beef Producer Organization? I'm sure they're speaking up as well. Actually, I just reached out to get somebody because it was really quick notice. And I'm sure, as I said, Cliff, all of those organizations are quite upset with this. And if you Google it, I'm certain you'll find one. And again, for this particular issue, that don'tlabelmybeef.ca, you can reach out on that one. So yes, let's talk quickly about Bitcoin Well again one more time. It's a good, again, Alberta-based company with, look at that map with all of those ATMs all across Canada. That shows you this is a bricks and mortar company. This is the real thing. It's not some ethereal distant thing. We were talking about virtual reality. Well, this isn't virtual reality. Sure, it's digital currency, but it's real. It's you can pay your utility bills with it. They'll help set you up for that. You can have automatic deposits go into your Bitcoin savings account, just like a car payment and things like that. You can set it up. That's what these guys do. They help you set it up. They aren't hanging on to it. It's non-custodial, so your money's always safe. It's in your hands. These guys facilitate it and show you how you can do it. They've got payroll plans, savings plans, things like that we have at the Western Standard. Every month, a portion of my check, and it's voluntary for all staff, comes off my check, goes into a Bitcoin wallet, and the Western Standard matches that to a maximum. But it's a good deal. Your company could have that too, potentially. So check them out, bitcoinwell.com, and take control of your money. All right, I was just going through that C11 a bit when the guest popped in there. So I'll finish up on this a little more, and that's that. Here's somebody's quote. This is from the Internet Society. So this is the Canadian chapters, so some society that I guess stands up for the internet, speaks for itself. But basically he's saying, yeah, this bill is so broad, Parliament could declare email to be broadcasting. They could get to the point, if you have an email list, suddenly you are subject to the controls of this bill with C11. You know, when you have a hammer, everything looks like a nail, wrote the Internet Society. It says C11 is based on the tragic illusion all audio and audio-visual content on the internet is a program, and that any person who transmits a program on the internet is a broadcaster rather than a communicator. I think it's fair enough that we're considered a broadcaster, but still, we don't need to be controlled. We don't need it. You don't need this bill. We don't need more. We don't need it further. And as they wrote further, it says it fails to differentiate between a podcast produced in a residential basement or a major released motion picture on Netflix. Yeah, and those are two very big, distinct things. And this bill doesn't distinguish between them. The bottom line is it's control. And it's funny, because we're finding out, and our government's finding out, that the podcaster in his basement is actually managing to have as much influence as Netflix sometimes. When something will go viral, where they dig into an issue that the mainstream media wouldn't touch, they can hold the government to account. So of course the government doesn't like this. Of course they're trying to shove it through. So as we're talking about all this engagement, talking about pushing on to our elected members of parliament, senators, this is another one, guys. Get on that Senate. You know, they're going to ram it through parliament, but the Senate still has to have a look at it. Let's see. Speaking of debacles and unfit government and inefficient government. So they overlooked 36 million acres. Climate change benefits of federal tree planting will be slow at first. Yeah, no doubt. Canada has their own department just realized, oh, we have 36 million more acres of existing trees than we originally thought. We have lots of trees. Not enough people have really gone out. Like I mentioned occasionally, I spent 20 years working in the oil field surveying. I worked jobs all over the place, from Gulf of Mexico all the way up to the 4 different horrible winters in the Arctic. But I tell you, if someone will teach you just how much bush and untouched land there really is out there, fly from Calgary to Inuvik and look down there and see that bush. And that strip of bush goes all the way across to Newfoundland, all the way across back to BC. And all the amount of mountains back there, all those ranges, all those people screaming because Canmore is going to have a new development. Oh my God, the last grizzly on earth is there. No, it's not. In fact, if you look at a map, roads barely touch. You can barely get into the majority of the Rocky Mountains. There's a few highways that pierce through, and that's where you get those communities. But you go one range over, and it's virtually untouched, aside from a few backcountry hikers. And urban dwelling people, liberal type voters, often live under this illusion as if we're running out of trees, as if we're low on them. And we are not. I mean, it's not saying we want to go out and wholesale grind them down, but let's not pretend we don't have a massive carbon sink. In fact, one of the biggest in the world. So, yeah, the Forest Service estimates that, we got 2 billion trees? I don't know. You can't count these things. No, they're talking about planting 2 billion trees. These twits won't be able to do that. You want to see the healthiest woodlots you'll ever see? See a privately run one. One where they actually plan to harvest it down the road. That is a healthy tree lot. Or another area that's been logged and reseeded, because otherwise it will burn. There's that thing with these anti-logging nutcases that we see all the time out there. The natural progression, a forest, it can't just keep growing. It has to eventually either be cut down and rejuvenate, or it has to burn. There's no other ways about it. And I tell you, it's a scary thing, and I hope it's as long as possible. And I know there's some efforts have been done for controlled burns and bush spacing and so on. But I worked areas like up and down the Forestry Trunk Road in Alberta and Wyprus and around there. And I tell you, the undergrowth is so choked with deadwood and the fire ladders. They blame global warming for the big forest fires when they happen, which, by the way, we're not having any more than we used to. We just see it a lot more. You know, you can see it on the internet, you can see it on the news, you can see Twitter, but there's no more than there used to be. In fact, there's less. We fight them, we stop them. But we got a lot of areas that do burn a heck of a lot more intensely than they did because we have deferred these fires. We've stopped the natural fire from happening. So the fuel buildup has been massive. So when it does spark off, there's not a hell of a lot we can do about it. And if we logged it, that's one of the things we could do in advance. Not saying we got to log everything, but this anti-logging lunacy. Trees are truly renewable, guys. Guess what? They grow back. They really do. And it's kind of crazy that we pay as much as we do for lumber in this country when we got the amount of bush that we have in this country, So, yeah, government's forest management practices when they can misplace 32 million acres. 32 million acres. Oops, we misplaced that. And you got to trust these guys to control climate change or plant trees efficiently. Here's the state of Canada's forests, and it said less than 0.5% of timberlands, and this is one of the terms I hate right off the bat. So state of Canada's forests said less than 0.5% of timberlands have been lost to logging and farming. What do you mean lost? What do you mean lost? It's not lost. They took the trees off it and you put more trees on and they grow again. Farming? It's not dead. They don't turn it into a desert. They're planting stuff in it. And it's 0.5%. Talk about a drop in the bucket. And in the private industry, plants. This is the government tried to plant 2 billion trees. They're incapable. They can't figure it out. But the private industry has planted 547 million trees every year in Canada. Let the private industry do their thing. Get the hell out of the way. They'll do a better job than government every time. Man. So where else are we got? Let's talk about another stupid program we can spend our money on that's not doing us any good. Catering to Canada's most insecure province, that being Quebec. The bilingual cost was lowballed because remember we talked about that the government wants to impose bilingualism on the private sector now. They want to make private companies forced to hire more Frenchmen. And if they improve their personal hygiene, it could help with encouraging people to bring them on. But for the time being, yes, it looks like the law is the way we're going to have it. And they estimated $250 million cost was lowballed. $250 million, $250 million already to be wasted trying to shove bilingualism down the throats of private businesses where we don't need it. And that doesn't even account to any initiatives east of New Brunswick or west of Ontario. So in other words, right in the center where if there is any bilingualism, it's already there. So how much is it going to cost when you try to shove it down our throats out here in Alberta and Saskatchewan and BC where we don't want it and don't need it? Where in Calgary, Hindi is far more spoken than French or Cantonese is. Probably German even. So here's our money at work, guys. You know, massive deficits, massive inflation, interest rates are going up. People are going to be driven from their houses. One of the things the government never talks about to battle inflation is cutting their friggin' spending. Because yes, they're running up the printing presses. That's what's causing the inflation. Unfortunately, we have the dumbest prime minister in Canadian history in power right now. He's already said budgets balance themselves. He's already outright said he doesn't pay attention to economic theory. He's got his hands on the purse strings of the entire country. And that imbecile comes out and says, pardon me if I don't pay attention to economic theory. Yeah, trust fund baby who's never had to worry about paying a bill in his life is managing this country. And we're shocked why inflation is going mad and they won't cut spending. Well, here's an area we don't need to spend $250 million plus to try and shove French down the throats of people who don't want to speak it in private industry. How about that? There's a start. They won't do that though. So that's Bill C-13. There's another beauty. That one I don't expect the Senate to stand up to, though, because it's just not one of their hot issues, right? Hey, come on, Quebec. If you guys can't keep your own language, you don't deserve to have it. It's up to you, not me, for you guys to speak French. That's the thing with these insecure Quebecers. You're terrified of losing your language. Okay, fine. Speak it then. Breed better. Don't blame us. You know, if we got overwhelmed and English-speaking people ran out in Alberta, well, that's just the way it goes, I guess. Not my problem. Well, quit making it my problem. I'm afraid it is. All right. That's enough for today. I've been going well. Again, looking outside, looks like it's not raining too hard right now. So again, the worried floods look like they might not be hitting us that hard in the future. Let's hope it stays that way. Tune in tomorrow. I'm going to have Lindsay Seawalt from Alberta Proud and probably another guest on as well to join me. And of course, I'll have something new to rant about and get that vein pulsing. And well, I'll be installing those bees tonight too. So maybe I'll have some welts to show off. We'll see. So see you tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in. And yeah, I'll be here at 11:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time.